Hi there, my name is Darcy Reese. I'm the daughter-in-law of Shelly Reese, who has been speaking to you here on this channel and overseeing the others who have come to speak. She's my mother-in-law. I'm so thankful for her. And I have two little kids, 2.5 and 11 months old. So we aren't homeschooling yet in the sense of workbooks or curriculum, but we do a lot of puzzles, and we read a lot of books, we play outside, all of the kinds of good things that 2.5-year-olds and 11-month-olds need to be doing. But I'm here today because I want to share with you something that the Lord has been opening up to me, and something that I hope will encourage you as you continue to homeschool and home educate your children in wartime. So I'm here to dispel this myth that teachers, certified teachers in the public schools, are the experts on your children. We actually live in a culture right now that's saying you have to trust the experts in everything. Whatever sphere you look at, whoever the expert is, you just have to blindly obey. And we certainly need experts. We certainly need people who have a lot of knowledge in one area. I'm thankful for those people because I can't dive in deep to every single area of learning that's out there. But experts are meant to advise us, to counsel, to give us information, but we ultimately have to make decisions for ourselves. But I want to say to you that actually you are the expert on your child. You don't need a certificate or a degree in education to be an expert on your child. You just don't. The whole certification industry of teachers, it's all part of the compulsory government education system that public education has become in our country. Well, I can't go down this road right now, but what our public education system currently is not how our founding fathers designed it or wanted it to look like, and it is certainly not biblical. So our current system is compulsory. It's government organized and controlled. It's actually meant to make your children dumb. And I can say this because it's what it did to me. And the only reason that I am educated in any way now is because I took charge of my own education, even when I was still in school, to say, I'm not going to just listen to what you say. I'm going to start educating myself because I don't know if you're totally telling me everything. So you are, that's a whole other tangent, but you are the expert on your child. You do not need a certificate. You do not need a degree in education to be the expert on your child. You are the most qualified person to teach your child. Now, do you have every single resource that you ever could possibly need already? Well, there's probably room for receiving help, reading books, listening to podcasts, getting connected to other home educators, or resources that will help you educate yourself as a parent in how best to educate your child. Or you might not be an expert in biology or the American Revolution, but there are people out there or in books out there where you can educate yourself and get equipped to teach. So I'm not saying like all you have to do is open up your brain and somehow all the information is going to be poured into you, but you've got actually like the substance inside of you already. Like you're equipped. It's in your DNA because God designed your children for you, and He designed you for your children. It wasn't an accident. Like your child, even if they feel very different from you, God actually knew that this child needed you to be their parent. You're uniquely positioned to be the only one and the best one to parent them and to teach them. They were designed to be your children. So you do have everything you need. And then the practical stuff, sure, you got to go out and find it. But that's all part of the glorious system that God has put in place that I'm going to tell you a little bit about right now. So you still have to go out and find things, but just listen to some of these places in scripture. And look, maybe you aren't a Christian, but I just want to say to you that this book has, and yes, this is a diaper in Genesis, this book has actually everything we need for our real lives. Why don't we just dispel that myth while we're at this one that we're on? This book is not a historical document that has no relevancy in 2021. The only way that I'm making it through 2020 and 2021 is with this book in my heart and in my mouth. So let me show you a couple places in scripture where we see God instructing parents to teach their children, so that you can know I'm not just like coming up with this out of nowhere or following just certain trains of research. I'm finding it in scripture, and that's where I find my life. So in Deuteronomy 6:4-9, here's what God is saying. He's saying, "Hear, O Israel," what's Moses and then God. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words, which I command you today, shall be in your heart." So all of Deuteronomy and all of the law shall be in your heart. "You shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." So God is saying, the word has to be central to everything you're doing. But especially what he's saying here is, you've got to teach your children these things. You've got to talk about them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lay down, and when you rise up. You got to have them about you all the time. And that's absolutely true of the word. But honestly, that's a model of how to home educate. When you're sitting around in your family room, reading books or playing with trains, you talk to your children about the virtues of America, or depending, you got to adjust for age level and all that. But if you're playing with trains, you talk about, to a 2-year-old, look at how they go, look at how this one pulls this one, look at how it goes around the track this way. You instruct, you teach, just in the process of whatever you're doing that day. So you talk about them when you go on a walk, when you lay them down to go to sleep at night. You talk to them, you instruct them. This is why I think sometimes it's helpful to just say home education instead of homeschooling. Not there's anything wrong with that, but just we can get stuck in it's got to look like school. They've got to sit in chairs and not move for 7 hours, and that's just not it. We're home educating. We're walking by the way. We're lying down next to our children at night, singing to them and teaching them about who we are, who they are, who our family is, what our nation is, what our history is. Every opportunity, every time you're talking to your children, an opportunity to educate, and we see that in Deuteronomy. All right, here's a couple places in Proverbs. Honestly, if you just read through the book of Proverbs, you'll get all kinds of instruction of how to educate your children. But here's just a few. Proverbs 1:8-9. "My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck." So here, Solomon's telling his son to listen, but if the father's not instructing and the mother's not giving a law, then they have nothing, there's no education happening. So inherent here is that the fathers are meant to instruct and the mothers to give laws. And don't think about laws as like, hard, sometimes there are hard and fast laws, but I even read that like ordinances, guidances, they're educating, they're guiding. Here's the way you should go. That's what the law is. This is the best way. Go this way. Sometimes it has to be harsh and intense, and sometimes it can just be, no, don't do that, Proverbs 4:1-4. "Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law. When I was my father's son, tender and the only one in the sight of my mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commands, and live." So there's education happening, instruction from father to son for 2 generations. Proverbs 10:1, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. Why would that be true? Because a wise son has listened to his father's instruction and makes him glad. A foolish son has not listened to his mother's instruction and makes her grieve. So inherent in that, again, is that mother and father are teaching. Proverbs 19:27. Cease listening to instruction, my son, and you will stray from the words of knowledge. Again, that could be from other people, but in the context of this book, it's fathers and mothers instructing their children. So again, go to Proverbs for much, much more about fathers and mothers instructing. But here's, to me, one of the most critical ones, because Genesis is the foundation of everything. And in Genesis 1:26-28, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Then God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God makes man in his image, and he says, have dominion. God has all dominion, and he gives dominion to his people. God is a teacher. I can't get into all of this right now. But if you read Genesis 1-3 with the lens of God teaching Adam and Eve, you'll get a lot. And here he's showing Adam and Eve, form someone else to be like you. I'm forming you. You have dominion over the earth. Have dominion over everything. Throughout Scripture, you can see God saying, take dominion, have dominion, have dominion. So just as God made a man in his image, like out of nothing, it's amazing, we as parents are actually forming our children into our image. Do they have to look exactly like us? No, they're not copies, but they're disciples. They're the ones who we're forming to take on our characteristics, our virtues, our worldview. So God says to have dominion and make someone else who looks like you. And that's what we do with our children. We say, you are mine, you came from me, I'm gonna form you into the person that God has designed you to be. And this is my role, is to have dominion over you. Dominion, we have this weird thing about dominion, like that it's oppression. It's not oppression. It's bringing in a good law to a sphere. So you've been given a family. You've been given children to oversee and educate. And you're bringing a good order to them. That's your role. You are the expert on your child. You've been designed by God to be the parent of these children. They were created for you. So I hope that encourages you. What I want to encourage you to do coming out of this video, look at those verses, dialogue with the Lord, look at your, any place where you've been thinking, I've got to have experts teach my children, just let that go. You are the expert. And I think this could be helpful if you write down what you want for your kids. What do you want for them? Like, do you want them to be astrophysicists? Do you want them to be artists? Do you want them to be readers? Do you want them to be outdoorsy? Like, what do you want? What do you want them to have? Because if you identify what you want for them, you kind of get a grid of like, then what you want to educate them in. And can you hear my baby crying? I'm gonna have to go check on him in a second. But you get it, that will help you. It'll kind of point you in a direction, if you haven't thought about this yet, of what do I want my children to learn? Who do I want them to be? And that will be coming out of seeing who they are too. That's a good question to help in this exercise too, of like, who are they? What are you seeing? Like my older son, who's 2.5, loves to read. I mean, I read to him. He doesn't read yet. He loves to read books. He loves to do puzzles. Well, that tells me a lot about who he is. So when I go to say, what do I want for my kids? I'm going to take into account those things about who he is that he's already expressed and add them in as I'm kind of thinking through. Who is he? What do I want for them? So I think that could be helpful for you as the expert on your children to take time to work through, what do I want for them? What do I want them to learn? Where do I want them to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? How, what do I want to infuse in them? One thing I want to leave you with is from this book, Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto. It's a great book. If you want even more conviction to take your children out of school, or that taking them out of the school system was a good idea, this will be very encouraging to you. But here's a good place, maybe a quote to help get you started if you aren't even sure, like, I don't know what I want to give them. School trains children to be employees and consumers. Teach your own to be leaders and adventurers. School trains children to obey reflexively. Teach your own to think critically and independently. Well-schooled kids have a low threshold for boredom. Help your own to develop an inner life so that they'll never be bored. Urge them to take on the serious material, the grown-up material in history, literature, philosophy, music, art, economics, theology, all the stuff school teachers know well enough to avoid. Challenge your kids with plenty of solitude so that they can learn to enjoy their own company, to conduct inner dialogues. Well-schooled people are conditioned to dread being alone. They seek constant companionship through the TV, the computer, the cell phone, and through shallow friendships quickly acquired, quickly abandoned. Your children should have a more important life, and they can. I think that's helpful to get you started. To be leaders and adventurers, to never be bored, to cultivate that inner dialogue, to engage in the adult world. That's not like adult content, you know what I mean? That's like they're a part of generations before and after them. Let them see that big picture world that they're a part of. So I hope this is encouraging to you. Thank you for watching this video. Go, you are the expert of your child. You were designed to be their parent. Be encouraged to infuse in them everything you want them to have. Bless you in your home educating in wartime today.